Welcome to another Mixed Media Monday. I'm Eric Scott, and as always, I'm here just to make a quick little mixed media piece, just to kind of show you how simple it is to layer up some materials and create your own artwork. So if you want to work along, awesome. If you just want to watch, awesome as well. But today I thought I'd go ahead and kind of work with something that I did last week. So last week I did something a little bit different. I was doing a little bit of experimenting and trying out some different things. And so I was working with some index cards and just using black and white, basically making it monochromatic. So I'm going to kind of continue that today, not the experimenting part, but the monochromatic part. So taking some of the ideas that I developed last week and then thinking about how I might work with them today. So anyway, let's go ahead and let's get started. So I'll switch it over. All right, so I've got my standard mixed media paper. I'm still working with the 4" by 4" paper. This is Strathmore, their 400 series mixed media paper. And I've got some of my Derwent Inktense paints, and I'm just going to use the black. And then I have a black Inktense pencil, and I got a couple paint brushes, and then even the collage stuff that I'm going to be working with is going to be black and white. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to use. So I've got some self-portraits. I've got a web imagery that this is from a painting that I did. I photographed it and then printed it out in black and white and made some photocopies of it. Some random things, and then I have brains. So I'm not really sure which of these I'll use yet. But I wanted to have some around that I can use. So I might even use multiples of those. So anyway, so I've got my paper, got my paint brushes, and I want to go ahead and just put down some gray. And so I'm going to use the black. And the way I'm going to do that is, let me kind of get this situated. So I've kind of cleared out this little spot on my palette. So I'm going to put some water in there. I'm going to get a little bit of black because I don't want this to be real dark at first. And sometimes it can go pretty dark. So I just want to have kind of a real light wash. I want it to be kind of gray. And just by touching it, I can see that it's pretty gray. And then this should be enough just to put some random things down. And that's it. I'm trying to be random. I'm not like trying to paint a picture of anything. I'm not just kind of basically popping my brush around, seeing what happens. So anyway, so that's the first layer. Let me go ahead and grab my hair dryer and dry that. Okay, so makes for a nice kind of first layer. I want to put a slightly darker layer. So typically I would use color. I would use a light color first and then kind of use a darker color on top and then a darker one on top. But because I'm just using black, I'm going to play around with value. So kind of do the same thing, put more water up here. But this time I want the paint to be a little bit darker. So I'm just kind of getting a little bit more paint, and let's kind of see. So yeah, you can see that's a little bit darker now. Kind of doing the same thing, kind of let it bounce around. If I want, I can dip my brush into the water and kind of help dilute it a little bit more. Okay, so that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and dry it. All right, so get a little bit of water. I think I'm going to do a little bit more, but just make it a little bit darker. I got a slightly different brush so that way I can get, that's a little too dark. So just kind of rinsed out my brush. I just want to make that a little bit lighter. I don't want to go too dark yet. Of course, I'll go ahead and dry that. Okay, so I've got like 3 layers of that black, kind of making it darker and darker as I go. I want to go ahead and introduce some collage. So I think I'm going to use the web. And like I said, this was from a painting that I'd done. It was based on maps. And so all the main kind of lines in there are based on roads from maps. And it was part of a series that I call my home series. But like I said, I photographed the painting and then printed it out and then made photocopies of it. And that way I just have this kind of this black and white, real stark contrast. The original painting, I believe, was in purple. Okay, so I'll go ahead and glue that down. Use my glue stick. So this is a nice brand new glue stick. Has that nice dark blue, but I know it's going to dry perfectly clear. Okay. So the nice thing is that this is a nice black, and so a lot of really good contrast, and also brings back some of the white because of the white negative space in there. Kind of thinking I might want to have a little bit to kind of balance it out. So just kind of thinking maybe have a couple pieces on that one side. Yeah, and brings a little bit of balance to the piece. Okay. So that's looking pretty good. Got it nice and balanced. Okay. Let's go ahead and trim off the ends. So I like, this introduces some lines. So I think I'm going to grab my black pen. So the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen. This is a fine point. And so I think I'm just going to do some squares. Kind of thinking. And I'm going to bring in something over here too. So I'm trying to decide. I think I don't want to do, well, I want to do rectangles, but I don't want to do them kind of on top. I think I want them to go off the edge. So they might be rectangles or they might be squares. But again, squares are rectangles. And I just kind of feel like I want to have something over here, just a straight line to kind of go up and down, to kind of mimic this over here. Okay, so I'm going to grab my black pencil. This is called ink black, and I don't want to go super dark, so I'm just going to shade around. So I've done this before. So the black and white is really interesting because you're really taking color out of it, and you're just really playing around with the values. And so you have to make your contrast with the differences between dark and light. And it can be a real interesting challenge to do, is just to use black and white materials and kind of see what you end up with. So last week I randomly kind of limited myself to that. And then this week just kind of felt like, hey, maybe I can continue that, but instead of being experimental with it like I was last week, it was like, well, let me use those as limitations in an actual piece. And so this pencil really helps create more contrast. Excuse me. And I think it's the same black as the paint. I think that paint is also the ink black. And that's the thing, there are different blacks. So some of them might be a little bit warmer, some of them might be a little bit cooler. Okay, let's go ahead and dry that. Okay, so now I'm thinking about, I want to have something more substantial, trying to think like, what do I want? So I'm going to turn back to my pieces here my collage materials that I have, and kind of thinking about what I want to use. I'm thinking the brain might be a little too big. It could work if it was like an image transfer, but I'm just really thinking about a piece of collage. So I kind of have a couple ideas. So I'm going to cut out this one. So I'm not really quite sure which one I want to use, but let's try. Do I want to use a self-portrait? Nice thing is, this feels a little bit big, but I could trim it down a little bit. So maybe I'll do that. Just trim it down. It's a possibility, but I'm thinking one of these. I'm thinking especially this one. So let me cut this out. This is just a photocopy, or it's just printed out on a laser printer. So that's why it looks a little shiny. So it's a toner-based ink. So then that way I know it's not going to bleed if I paint over top of it. So I could use this as an image transfer and do a tape transfer or a solvent transfer. But I'm thinking just cutting out this circle and gluing it down. Because if I do a transfer, then wherever it's white is going to show, stuff is going to show through it. And so the face, little profile there might not show up all that well. Okay, so I've got this is a good size. And it's rounded, so it really kind of creates a lot of emphasis because it's a circle and there's no other circles in there. But let's talk about where I might place it. So there's a couple of things. First of all, I can think about the rule of thirds. So the rule of thirds says if I divide my space into 3 equal parts, both vertically and horizontally, then the focal point can be at one of those, like those intersections. And so I could put it up here. I could put it down here. I could put it over here. I could put it up here. Now, the only problem with on this side is that the profile, even though it's a very abstract profile, it's not a real person. We want to see more space in front of a profile, in front of a person than behind them. So putting it over here actually just makes it feel out of balance because we're kind of looking here. And so it feels very cramped. Whereas if we put it here, now all of a sudden this space is bigger, it opens it up. But I think I kind of like it more down in the bottom. So I think I'm going to put it right there. So I'm definitely taking this further than I did last week. I mean, last week I was working on several small experimental pieces, and today just really working with one, but just trying to see what I can get with just keeping it monochromatic, keeping it black and white. Okay, so as I look at this really stands out, but maybe it stands out a little too much. So I think what I need is I need to have some more circles, or at least the illusion of circles. So I think what I want to do is to bring in sort of, a circle that goes out of the frame. So I kind of think about triangles, so circle, circle, and I think maybe I'll have a little one right here. Maybe it'll go off the edge too. But I don't really have anything over here, so I think I'm going to try to put one over here. But that kind of throws off my triangle, my 3. So I think I'll put one more right here. Now I want those to stand out. I want to bring a little bit more attention to them. So I think I'll go ahead and I'm just debating. I was like, oh, do I go in the background like I normally do? Or I think I want to not really color them in, but add a little bit of color to the inside just to kind of echo what's happening here. Okay, let's go ahead and dry that. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to grab a couple things. I want my white gel pen, and I'm thinking a smaller, thinner black pen. So I think I just want to kind of add a few embellishments. I think one of the things I want to do is just to go back over these squares. Just really kind of neaten these up, make them a little bit thicker and a little bit bolder. Okay. Now I want to bring in a little bit more value, but instead of using more paint or more pencil, I'm going to use the pen. And what I want to do is, I think I'll go vertically. So it's easier actually to kind of go horizontally, draw horizontally, but I want the lines to go vertically. So I'm going to use this thinner pen, and I'm just going to put a series of stripes in that are closer to, really close together. So it should kind of make that shape a little bit darker. I think I'll go ahead and just keep going. And just want to kind of put in that same kind of thing here and there in different spaces. So, you know, it's not in all of the circles kind of thing. And then just kind of gonna use my gel pen. Since this is paper, I often just kind of test it on, make sure that it's writing pretty well. Let me try, I have another one over here. Let's try that one. Like one of them writes a little bit better than the other. So I've got the circles, so I'm thinking, well, maybe if I do some dots. All right, I think that one's kind of working. So I'm gonna go ahead and call this one finished. Go ahead and sign it. And there's another one done. All right. Well, I guess that wraps it up for another Mixed Media Monday. I hope you enjoyed this a little bit of a different take on things. I'm just trying to limit myself, use just the black and white, keeping it monochromatic. So everything from the black paint and the black pencil to the black pen, black and white pen, and also black and white collage materials. So it's always a good challenge to try it out. So if you've never done it, maybe you've been working along, or maybe you're inspired to kind of try it yourself. So I'd love to see what you're doing. So if you tag me on social media, I would love to be able to see what you've been doing. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it, and I'll see you next week. And as always, happy creating.